Welcome back to Self-Invested, where we talk about how you can do better with money. In this video, I'm going to be talking about the right to buy scheme, a scheme which allows most council tenants to buy their homes for 70% below market value. Now, this scheme is probably more generous than any other scheme that I've covered on this channel, but it's not necessarily the scheme that offers the biggest discount. I'll explain why this is later on in the video, so make sure you watch all the way to the end. So who is eligible for the right to buy scheme? The first criteria is that the home that you're buying needs to be your only home or your main home. It also needs to be self-contained, and thirdly, you need to be a secure tenant. Now, a secure tenant is somebody that has the ability to live in their home for the rest of their life as long as they don't break any of the conditions of their lease. The next criteria is that you need to have had a public sector landlord. Now that means your landlord needs to have either been the council, a housing association or the NHS trust for at least 3 years. But those 3 years do not need to be consecutive, so they don't need to be in a row. You can make joint applications with anyone that you share the tenancy with, but you can also make a joint application with up to 3 family members even if they're not on your tenancy. The only criteria is that they've lived with you or lived in that home for the past 12 months. And the reason why you may want to make a joint application is just to help you with the affordability to be able to buy your home through the right to buy scheme. If you live in a home that was owned by the council but then was later sold to a different landlord, such as a housing association, while you were living in that home, then you may have the opportunity to buy your home under something called preserved right to buy, even though now you may be a tenant of a social landlord or a housing association. So what discounts do you get with the right to buy scheme? Now, as I said, you can get up to a 70% discount on the market value of your home, but this amount is capped at £84,200 for homes outside of London and £112,300 for properties inside of London. Now, the discount is based on how long you've been a tenant for a public sector landlord, the type of property you are buying, whether it's a flat or a house, the value of your home, if you've used right to buy previously, and if your landlord has spent any money on your building in the last 10 or 15 years. So if your landlord built or acquired your building before the 2nd of April 2012 and they spent money on your building in the last 10 years, then this may affect the discount that you get. And if you're buying your home through preserved right to buy and your landlord acquired your home after the 2nd of April 2012 and they spent money on your building in the last 15 years, this could also affect your discount. Now, for houses that are bought through the right to buy scheme, you can get a 35% discount if you've been a council tenant for between 3 and 5 years. After 5 years, the discount that you can get moves up in 1% increments, which means that it will take 35 years for you to reach the maximum percentage discount that you can get of 70%. But you don't necessarily need to wait 35 years to take advantage of the maximum discount available to you as a council tenant. This is because the discount is actually capped, and it's capped at £84,200 for homes outside of London and £112,300 for homes inside of London. This means that if your house is worth £240,572 outside of London or £320,858 inside of London, you'll be able to take advantage of the maximum discount you can get after 3 years as a council tenant, because 35% of £240,572 is equal to the maximum discount available, which is £84,200, and 35% of £320,858 is equal to the maximum discount you can get for a property inside of London of £112,300. For flats that are bought through right to buy, you can get a 50% discount on the value of the property if you've been a council tenant for between 3 and 5 years. After year 5, the discount goes up by 2% each year. So that means it would take 10 years to reach the maximum discount of 70%. But as with the previous examples that I just gave, you don't necessarily have to wait 10 years to take full advantage of the maximum discount that you can get from right to buy. So if you were buying a flat outside of London after 3 years, you would only need the value of the property to be £168,400 or more to be able to use the maximum discount of £84,200. And if you're buying a flat within London after 3 years, you would only need the property value to be worth £224,600 to take advantage of the maximum discount available to you of £112,300. Now, because the discount on the right to buy scheme is capped, this means that it's not necessarily the scheme that will offer you the biggest discount on buying a property. For properties over £374,333 inside of London and £280,666 outside of London, the First Home Scheme will actually provide a bigger discount than the right to buy scheme because it offers at least a 30% discount on the value of a home, and it's not capped by any fixed amount. Say for example you were buying a property inside of London for £600,000 and outside of London for £357,000. The biggest discount you could get with right to buy would be £112,300 inside of London and £84,200 outside of London, meaning that you could purchase these properties for £487,700 and £272,800 respectively. However, under the First Home Scheme, you'd be able to get an uncapped 30% discount on the market values of these properties. So a discount of £180,000 for the property inside of London and a discount of £107,100 for the property outside of London. This means that you'd be able to buy the property inside of London for £450,000 and a property of outside of London for £249,900. This means that the discount you get on the First Home Scheme for a home valued at £600,000 is actually £37,700 more for the property inside of London and £22,900 cheaper for the property outside of London. But this doesn't mean the First Home Scheme is more generous than the Right to Buy scheme, and I'll explain why in the next section. Now, if you want to find out more about the First Home Scheme, I'll provide a link just above here, above my head here, but I'll also link to it at the end of this video. Right to buy mortgages. Now this is where you start to see how generous the right to buy scheme is, because there's a good chance if you buy your property through right to buy, you won't even need to put down a cash deposit in order to secure a mortgage. So say for example you were buying a flat for £224,600 inside London. You would get a 50% discount equal to £112,300, which means you could buy the property for £112,300. Now, because when you decide to sell your right to buy a home, you'll be able to sell it at market value, the lender will allow you to use that 50% discount that you received from the council as a deposit towards your mortgage, meaning that you don't need to put down any of your own money and can secure a 50% loan to value mortgage of £112,300 to buy your flat. Now this is what makes the right to buy scheme so generous, because with the First Home Scheme you may get a 30% discount when you buy your home, but when you sell your home you need to sell it with that 30% discount as well. But with the right to buy scheme, even if you sell your property within the first 10 years of ownership, you'll be able to sell it at market value. So whatever discount you got below market value, you can essentially profit on. You don't have to pass that discount on to the next person that buys. And now this, in my opinion, makes the right to buy scheme more generous than any other scheme that I've covered. Now, another thing to mention here is that if you're using a mortgage to buy your council flat or house through the right to buy scheme, it's a good idea to get a mortgage broker or mortgage advisor on board to work with you, because lenders can be a bit funny about lending on council owned or formerly owned council properties. Now, if your flat has deck access, for example, this is where you have an external balcony that is shared with others that you use to get to your front door. There are actually lenders that won't lend on properties like this, so it's a good idea to find a mortgage broker with experience of buying properties through right to buy, so they can help make the process a lot smoother for you as somebody trying to buy their right to buy property. Selling your right to buy a home. Now, if you want to sell your right to buy a home within the first 10 years of ownership, you need to either offer it to your old landlord or another social landlord in your area at market value. If you sell your home within the first 5 years of ownership, then you will have to pay back a percentage of the discount that you received. So if the market value of the flat that you bought was £224,600 and you got a discount of 50%, which means your discount was £112,300, but the value of the property had increased to £250,000 at the time you wanted to sell before the end of the 5th year, you would have to repay part of £125,000, which is equal to 50% of the flat's new value of £250,000. If you were to sell it after 1 year, 6 months, this means that you would have to repay £100,000, which is 80% of £125,000. If you were to sell it after 2 years and 6 months, this means you would have to repay £75,000, which is equal to 60% of the discount. If you were to sell it after 3 years and 6 months, you would have to sell it at £50,000, which is 40% of the discount. And if you were to sell it after 4 years and 6 months, you would have to pay back £25,000, which is 20% of the discount you received. So that brings us to the end of the video. If you want to find out more about the scheme and about how you can apply for the scheme if you're a council tenant, or you think that you might be entitled to preserved right to buy, then you can find a link to the application page down in the description to this video. Now, if you enjoyed this video, you might also enjoy the video I did on the first home scheme, which I mentioned a couple times. A scheme that gives first-time buyers the opportunity to buy homes 30% below market value. Now, if you want to watch that video, I'll provide a link just here so you can click on it now. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video and I'll see you at the next one. Take care. Bye.